welcome everybody. I get to do the anxiety-inducing introduction today.
Thank you,
We
Gabe.
are very excited. I got your back, bud. We are very excited to be joined by the first guest that we've had on our podcast, and that is Allison from from the Calix team. She leads our digital. Well, Allison, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us all of the wonderful things that you're leading from a digital perspective with our team.
You got it, Gabe. Hey, everybody. I'm Allison Boudreau, and I oversee the digital programs, community, and education team here at Calix. We're part of the customer success umbrella here, and we really focus on enabling customers and success at scale.
Yes, love that. And that is what the reason we wanted to have Allison on today was to talk specifically about community and how she sees community kind of evolving as we move forward. I think we're at a really interesting inflection point with, kind of where communities have been previously and where they're headed in the future. And her leading these efforts at Calix just gives her such a unique perspective on, how she's pushing her team forward. But before we get into all of the businessy stuff, Allison and I, big foodies, and we have shared some incredible meals together. And I wanted to ask you, Allison, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. What is the favorite meal that you and I have ever had together?
I mean, it has to be the bone marrow butter at the grocery in Charleston, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a pretty fantastic meal. A couple others popped to mind, though, some in San Diego and Austin, but I think what about you?
The one you said first straight away is definitely the one that came to my mind as well. So there's a restaurant, if you're ever in Charleston, South Carolina, called The Grocery. And I was actually on a call with a customer a week or so ago talking about that restaurant. And so I looked it up. It's still there. It is still open, thankfully. Delicious, delicious food for sure. And it is called The Grocery. So if you're in Charleston, South Carolina, which is a lovely place for food, definitely recommend checking that out. The other one I was thinking about was the crazy place that we went to called, I believe, Werewolf, which was in San Diego.
The bar.
Yes.
I feel like I need to travel with you guys more often.
Oh, you definitely.
It's not a bad crowd to travel with, Zach, for sure.
My number one goal, Zach, I know you're more like, hey, I'm going to go, find a nice mountain to climb or, hike up or something like that. My number one goal whenever I travel is where am I going to eat and how am I going to get as much food in my body as possible in that time frame.
Hey, I think it was Jim Gaffigan that said, when you go on vacation, when you travel, it's just, eating in new places. That's the main goal.
100%. That is always my main goal.
I agree.
And hiking new places too.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Said nobody. So much silence on that, but not everyone's thing. That was
maybe hiking to the next restaurant.
Yeah. Zach. That's exactly it. I'm all about that.
So I have to tell you one thing, Allison, about the Werewolf place so I went back there actually the last time I was in San Diego, which was still a few years ago, but I went back to that spot. And I ordered my food, which I don't know if you remember what we ate, but the super good thing was a pork belly banh mi sandwich, which was just so good. I could go for one of those right now. It's delicious. But I went back, I ordered the pork meat, went to the bar, ordered my food. And the bartender, instead of giving you a number or, asking your name or anything, he says, "What's your spirit animal?" And I just had this blank look on my face. I nobody's ever asked me that before. I don't know how to respond to this question at all. So I thought that one was, I have no idea how to respond to this question. And then two, I thought Allison would really like this. I'm really bummed out that they didn't ask us this when we went there together.
Totally. I would be a dragonfly. Zach, what would you be?
I was waiting for someone to ask me that. And Allison, I was thinking questions like that always give me anxiety, but was it you, Allison, that asked me on my interview what kitchen utensil I would be? Was that you or is that someone else? Because I remember it was someone asking me that and I just had this thought in my head, what is that even what would I be?
I stole that question from a colleague who asks that question just to test if you're game for kind of those weird questions and also to see if you'll play along. Nobody knows off the top of their head what kitchen utensil you're going to be.
Oh, I think
right?
I knew. I planned that one.
That was me. I definitely. Now you will, For sure.
Well, you must have given a reasonable answer, Zach, because we hired you. So,
That's right.
It's all in the kitchen
funny.
To go
utensils.
back to my notes and let you know. That's right.
All right. Well, as much as I could talk about food all day, and I really, really could, we can circle back to, more relevant topics. So, Allison, would you mind giving us just a little bit of your history, at Calix, and kind of how you've seen the community evolve over the last few years that you've been involved and really the last few years leading that team?
Absolutely. Well, yeah. So I'll tell a little bit about myself and then the evolution of the community. So I've actually been at Calix now for 12 years, and I started in the marketing department overseeing trade shows and events, which was an excellent experience. I came from healthcare previously, so telecom was a new industry to me at the time. But then I shifted over into marketing, campaigns, and communication. Played that role for a while, and then I oversaw the development of the demand generation team and the events team. And then we started this incredible team that I knew nothing about called Customer Success. And I spoke with Martha Galley, who was leading the team at the time, and said, I don't really know what customer success is, but I know that I want to work on your team. And she said, come on over here and help us with our success at scale kind of evolution. And that included the Calix community. We've had a community for 8 years. We were on a platform previously, and then we shifted over to Salesforce Community as our platform. And it was a really solid core group of what we now call our champions, really very technical, asking questions, but they really loved how they could go to the community and get their answers, very quickly. And when I came in and started to overtake it, it became brand alignment. How are we making it look and feel like the rest of the Calix experience? And then making sure that we're now adding even more content for customers to find through either KB articles written by our TAC members or customer success team members like yourselves, or TAC TV videos. So TAC TV came into my team around that same time as well. And then leading them from the community, kind of, we have a saying that's no dead end. So if they're on a community article, here's maybe an education course you can take, here's a TAC TV video, here's a Circle of Success session that you want to attend. And we're really focused now on not just community as a platform at Calix, but the relationships that we're fostering amongst customers and Calix employees. And so that's really what we have engagement amongst our customers. We're seeing, more engagement every day, but it's taking that feeling of community just off the platform and then into kind of the rest of our interactions with customers.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun.
I love that. And that's really a big reason why we wanted to have this conversation. Cause I think, this is obviously a marketing podcast. We're talking about marketing related topics, but I think community is a huge part of this to foster those conversations. And this topic also sort of sprung out of another podcast that I was listening to, ironically done by some folks at HubSpot that I had sent over your way. And we were talking about this whole idea of community moving more out of a traditional product conversation and more to a practice conversation. And I think that evolution that you mentioned is really interesting, where we've kind of gone through this over these last few years, where when you first started, it was technical folks answering technical questions about Calix products. Now it's evolved to, I think, something a bit different, which there is still a lot of that as well, but there's also conversations about how people are actually running their business and marketing campaigns and those sorts of things. I would just be curious to hear your perspective on, how you see that continuing to change, and, what does that product versus practice thing kind of look like for you moving forward?
Yeah, you're so right. The core of our community was the technicians, and they're in there asking very technical questions about how do I do X? It was usually very specific. As we've brought in different roles of the business, right? Marketers, customer service reps, their questions tend to be a little bit different into now job role specific. So it's not just how do I do this with the Calix product, but like you said, how do I run a better marketing campaign? How do I get people to engage with my Facebook posts? and then people will answer with examples, which is fantastic. But I think, um, you know, COVID especially helped with this, but people, when we interviewed, people around our community, it was a feeling of belonging that they were finding in a way that was easy for them to access when maybe they couldn't be in person. So,
Yeah.
as you know, the telecom industry it's inclusive, and they love each other and they're willing to share. And the community gave them a place that they could go to do that when we couldn't get together in person. um, Now we're seeing that kind of inverse of they built these relationships on the virtual community, and now they're going back out to events and we're getting pictures of them meeting each other for the first time, and it's
so
it's
cool.
awesome, right? Because it's not just when you're logged in, and it's not just about how Calix can help, but how community members can help, and that's just really exciting to me.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, honestly, that's one of my favorite parts about this industry that we work in, is because very few people are competing directly with each other. There is so much sharing that happens, and willingness to, hey, this is working for me, or this isn't working for me. I tried this. I love that aspect of it. And I think, to pat you and your team on the back, you all have done a great job of creating that in a
Thanks.
digital way to, create that kind of open sharing. I wanted to ask Zack a question, just, he being a little bit slightly younger than Allison and I, being a digital native, how do you think about community like this, Zack? Like, I know you've gone through HubSpot training as an example, right? I think they do a ton with blogs and podcasts and, all these sorts of things as well, but they also have a lot of really specific product training. How do you see this, from your perspective, where you've just always been able to Google stuff to learn about it? Alice and I didn't always have that. We didn't have that when we were in, early on in our careers. I just
we know how to play with the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah,
don't forget that, Gabe.
Yeah, well,
we do have that.
If we ever end up at a library, you guys will have a one-up on me. But no, to your point, Gabe, I've done a lot of the HubSpot training, and a lot of that's kind of that continued education, learning how to use a specific software, maybe just interacting with other people in the HubSpot community as well. But that's one thing I called out from the HubSpot training is when I did my last training with them, one of the things was that they had you do was go to the HubSpot community and kind of read and interact with other people. So I thought that was pretty interesting, because not only am I learning how to use HubSpot now, but I'm talking with people who have also used HubSpot, kind of hearing what they have to say as well. So I think that's one fascinating way. You mentioned, Google and being able to Google things. Google got me through 2 years of Spanish, but one thing too with Google is another one of my favorite sites. And every time I think of community, I think of this website. It's more of a social media site at this point, but it's Reddit. Have you ever used Reddit, Gabe?
I have not used Reddit. I've definitely ended up on Reddit pages where I've Googled stuff and ended up on a Reddit thread, but it's never something where I've actually gone to Reddit specifically to search for stuff.
I see Allison nodding her head. Reddit is,
Allison's a lot more savvy than me when it comes to this stuff.
Hey man, well, we'll get you on Reddit next.
I don't know, savvy. That's right. Being in the community space, of course, I'm going to research and see what else out there. But Zack, what do you think of Reddit and its layout? Because it is a little bit more text forward than graphics.
It really is. So when you go to Reddit, it's basically someone posting an image, a comment, whatever they post, and then everyone just kind of comments on top of that. It builds a thread, and you interact with other people. And then within Reddit as a whole, each community is called a subreddit. So there's a subreddit community for really any topic you can think of. And Allison, let me ask you this. What is your favorite subreddit now? I'll tell you mine, and we can probably find one for Gabe. But
you tell me. There you go. You tell me yours.
Gabe's gonna love this, but Gabe, as you know, I came. We both kind of have that finance banking background, and I almost feel bad for plugging this, but I think Wall Street Bets on Reddit. I think it's just fascinating to read. Like it's people mostly joking around. I hope for but at the same time, they're having these financial discussions and sharing often bad advice. But I think it's just, for me, that subreddit has a lot of entertainment value.
I could see that one. I did, while you're thinking about it, Allison, I did see a tweet the other day that just absolutely made me laugh super hard about Reddit, which was this person said that if they want to know the answer to something, they don't go onto Reddit and ask the question. They put something out there that they know is wrong because people like to tell you that you're wrong. And so they'll tell you the right answer, which just was such a perfect encapsulation of where we're at as a society. But I did think it was a brilliant way to get the answer that you actually needed.
I will say another one of my
I think
favorite
that is
subreddits.
actually fantastic.
Another one of my favorite subreddits, like actually favorite now, is there's a lot of tech subreddits. So technology, you can go on and discuss the latest technology, chat with other people. Oftentimes people give away products. So if you want to, sneak into a giveaway and get some free swag, you can do that too. But I think the tech subreddits, especially coming from a tech industry now, is also one of my favorites to visit. But Allison, where are you spending time on Reddit?
Yeah, so Reddit isn't my favorite. I love it from a business like analyzing. I'm actually on Discord a little bit more than Reddit. And I'm on like horoscope and tarot reading Discords.
I have a
So
lot to say about
take
Discord.
that for what you will.
Discord is a fantastic
It's,
app. I've used it for, it's, I would say it's got a pretty heavy gaming focus, but again, it's building those chat channels and sharing content as well. But every now and then I meet people, and I've got to be careful what I say here, but, and that's like their preferred communication tool. And it blows my mind that app is what people want to use to communicate. Cause I think of like, text messaging, Snapchat, Instagram and stuff like that. But every now and then I'll meet someone that'll be like, "Oh yeah, you have a Discord?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do, but why?"
So if you want to, so again, a generational difference here. So my son, right, is a little bit younger than you, Zach. So he's, in sixth grade, and his friends use Discord as chat.
A little
and that's
bit
how I
younger,
got
and
into
he's in
Discord
sixth
because
grade.
I was like, a little bit younger. He's in sixth grade.
Just a teeny bit.
Just saying, there's a generational difference, right? And I was like, what is this Discord thing? What are you talking about? And so that's how I started learning about Discord, was because that's exactly what they use it for, is their chat. And so that's the, the technology is going to change. And, if you mention like other great communities, Reddit's fun. I love the Sephora community, and I love the Sephora community because they've pushed very hard for their members to have a say. And so if you look at certain products on Sephora, they'll have a sticker next to it that says community approved. And to me, that's like the end goal, right? Like your members are running and voting and having a say in the products. And to me, that's something that's very, I'm very passionate about in our community. I want our community members to have that kind of say and get back to, the company so that we can make our products better. Yeah. So
one thing you mentioned as we were kind of sort of giving Zach a little bit of a hard time about him being maybe closer to your son's age than us, but there is this generation of kids that are growing up now, your son, my kids, that are going to be 100% totally digital native, right? And so this stuff is not going to seem weird to them at all, of going out and finding all of this content and communities online. And I do think that's a big opportunity for companies to lean into that, because these folks are now they're not that far away from being the purchase decision makers in their home, right? And they have grown up in a world with Discord and some of these other things that we need to lean into, otherwise we're going to be left behind for sure.
I totally agree with that. And I think, as we think about community, people sometimes think it has to be like a unique platform. And I don't agree. If your demographic is on Facebook, a Facebook group, that can become a community. It doesn't have to be, this kind of standalone site. But yeah, we have to forever evolve and change and be where the people you're trying to reach are. And I probably would not know what Discord is unless, I wanted to make sure that I knew where my kids were hanging out. Totally. But yeah, keeping abreast of that, new technology, new, I don't want to say trend, but where are they going and how do you reach them, Gabe, I think is something that, our customers for sure need to be aware of and keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's not so much even the trend of a specific application, right? Because the applications
Nope.
themselves are going to change. Just like to your point, Facebook into Instagram to Snapchat to TikTok, right? The
Yep.
applications themselves are going to change, but the thought process of I'm a person who wants to meet more people who are like me and have similar questions and things that they enjoy. That's just a human thing, right? And
Yeah.
no matter what tool exists to do that, it's up to us to create a community of like-minded people to have those conversations. The other thing I've seen is just sort of a little bit from a trending perspective is, and I we talked a little bit about this when we were chatting about HubSpot, but there's a company I've been seeing a lot on social. I see a lot of their stuff on Twitter. It's a company called Triple Whale, and they're a marketing organization. They do marketing data analytics, and so that's like right in my sweet spot, right? It's stuff that I enjoy talking about. But they've got a great website, they've got a podcast, and they have a YouTube channel where they have content that's really not about their product at all. It's about how to run e-commerce marketing organizations. What are the KPIs that you should be looking at? How can you be building better websites? All of these things that are not necessarily specific to their product, but I feel like if they're seen as an expert, then people will come back to them when they do need those marketing data analytics platforms. And I feel like HubSpot's kind of similar in that way, right? When if they've put themselves out there as the expert on marketing, then when you need a marketing platform, you're going to go back to the thing that you know. So while it may not be traditional marketing, to use my air quotes here, it is definitely building brand and building awareness of your solution.
I agree. And the HubSpot one is a great example. When I ran our marketing automation tool, we don't use HubSpot here. But I was on HubSpot probably every morning trying to read the new blogs, talk to people, because a lot of the theory could be transferred, even if it's not the exact tool, right? And I think that's something that companies forget about as well when they're kind of developing all this content that they're putting out on, a community or a platform, is that it does extend your brand past just your customer base. And I think that's something that's really important.
100%. Yeah, that's wild. It's pretty crazy that, even though, like you said, you weren't a HubSpot user at all.
Nope.
It was a page that you went to almost every day to,
Every
learn
day.
about those conversations that were happening in the industry. I think that speaks volumes to, if you've got good content out there and an interactive community where people are learning. So just shifting gears a little bit, obviously we all work in the broadband, or we all work with broadband service providers primarily. And I was trying to think about, okay, how does this translate to that industry specifically? Excuse me. And Allison, I think you brought up a really good point around Facebook, or social just in general. I'd be curious to hear your insight. Zach, I'd be curious to hear yours as well. How do you think people build a community around social media specifically? Is it with Facebook community groups? Are there other ways that you guys can think of to, build that community of people who are interested in? I realize broadband service is not necessarily the most exciting thing to talk about.
Oh,
but
it's pretty exciting. Let's
something
be
that's
honest.
real darn important. Well, I mean, I love it, but it's the industry working, right? Most people don't necessarily care, but I mean, again, if the pandemic proved anything, it proved that it's real darn important.
It's
right?
actually
it's
funny.
really important to have high quality internet to your home.
It's funny you bring that up, Gabe, because we'll switch over to Allison here in just a second. But one of my close friends is moving over to the East Coast. And he's out there today, and he was sending me some Snapchats of some apartments he was looking at. And his comment was, "Hey, can you take this address and see what internet is available?" And immediately I was like, "Absolutely! Like, I can totally do that." But then I found myself on like these pages with like multi-gig, some like less than 20 meg. And I asked him, I was like, "Would you be willing to pay a little extra to have a gigabit connection, or what's your kind of thought here with would you base where you move, based on what kind of broadband connection they have?" So it's funny because I have friends that reach out to me, all the time now saying, "Hey, can you see what broadband is available at this address?" and so on, so on. And obviously it's something I love doing. It's exciting to have the fastest internet you can. But to your point, Gabe, is broadband exciting? I'm going to say absolutely. Why wouldn't it be?
Well, I guess that's maybe the point, right? Is it's even if it's not necessarily exciting to a broad group of people, if you can find a group of people that are excited about it, why not leverage, why not leverage that and build it into a community?
Yeah, I think so. Two things, Zach. Great example on housing. When I moved 6 years ago, that was my number one question of my realtor, and he thought I was crazy. He was like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I work from home. This was pre-pandemic, so I don't know if but he said he had never really been asked that question, and I'm like, I need to understand what service providers are to this home and what kind of speeds they can give me, and so we were doing that in the car, right? Googling, going, okay, who's this? Is it Time Warner at the time? Is it Google? Is it AT&T Fiber? Who is it? And there were a couple houses that I was like, yep, no go, because they couldn't get me the speeds that I wanted. And I think we're seeing that shift even more now, especially post-pandemic, with kids working or kids doing school from home or people working from home becomes even more important. And I think service providers have a huge opportunity, and they actually inspire me when I think about building community because they are really already good at it from a hometown business, development. So I think about, taking it off. You want to say take it offline. Okay, great. You have a float in your town parade. You're sponsoring sports events at the local high school. You have that attention of the community, and I think bringing them to a digital place becomes easier as people become more comfortable, right, with Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. And I think, the thing they have to remember is, Gabe, you're right. It's not just about product, right? You're not going to say, come here and learn about the fastest internet we can get for you, but it becomes, come here and, every Friday we're going to do something about the town history. Come here and, tell us these stories about, what used to be here, or, just updates about the town. I think is something that our service providers can do very well, and already have that kind of innate sense of community. So it's bringing them now to a digital platform that becomes, the advantage that they get.
Yeah, one that I've seen some of my customers doing really well, to kind of extend on that one, Allison, and I think that's a fantastic idea also, is the idea of highlighting a local business. Obviously you're probably not just offering internet service to residential people, it's probably to business people as well. So go through your customer list, find some folks that you want to highlight and tell their story. It's a great opportunity for you to tell their story, for them to get some free publicity, and again, build yourself up in that community. I've definitely seen a lot of folks doing that with really good success, for sure.
And Gabe, that's
another
something
interesting one. And this is
just to stick on that topic real quick, Gabe. That's something in my last role in banking we did is, we were the dominant bank in the town. We could advertise on Facebook all we want. It really wasn't going to change much. People knew who we were. So what we started doing is we started reaching out to nonprofits, and we would, show up with cameras and make a video all about them. And then we had a blog on the website, and we would share that. So our advertising, instead of being like, hey, interest rates for housing, new rate, whatever that is, instead we'd come out and say, hey, here's this nonprofit in town. Here's what they do. Here's them talking. We're not even going to mention the name of the bank. We're going to publish it on the bank channels, but we're not going to mention them specifically. So I think that's just another way of, to Allison's point, going out in the community and promoting, just the people and the businesses in your community, as opposed to maybe yourself, even like we did.
Yeah,
that's right.
No, I think it's a great idea. I love the nonprofit angle of that as well. We've done something similar, and I mentioned this before, but I'm the partner in a small co-working business here in the town that I live in, and we've done the same thing with member profiles. So it's it's all kinds of small businesses or independent consultants or entrepreneurs or whatever that are coming into the space and using the space to work. So it's, hey, let's highlight them, highlight their business. We actually, again, put it on the website. We have a whole landing page that kind of talks through some of this. And yeah, it's a little bit of work, but it's been really well received. And to your point, Zach, about, well, everybody knows who we are. How much acquisition are we going to be doing? Probably not a lot, but it's more of a retention play at that point, and trying to remind people that you are local, that you're there to help the community, that you're there to serve, to serve them.
And that we see a lot, Gabe, with the big broadband companies. If you've got a small local company doing something like that, the chances are, and Gabe, we've talked about this a lot now, but the chances are big name broadband is not going to come in and have that local community tie. They're not going to have that community investment like you do. So you can absolutely leverage that as well.
Yeah, totally. One other interesting idea, this is another one that you sent to me, Zach, a couple of weeks ago, that Starry Internet or Starry Connect, which I thought was a really interesting company. They're a fixed wireless internet service provider in some larger markets, LA, Denver, I think maybe even New York. So, very large markets, but they do a give and get. So if you sign up for their internet, then I don't know what the exact ratio was, but let's just say, I don't know, maybe it's 5 to 1, whatever. For every 5 people that get signed up for internet that are paying, they give internet to an underprivileged family who wouldn't be able to have that connection otherwise. I thought that was a really great idea. I mean, talk about building community and supporting the communities that you serve. And it's prominently displayed on their website. I thought that was a really interesting idea as a way to, potentially build up those relationships with different people in the community as well.
Yeah, that's an awesome
I really
idea.
like that one. I thought that was a cool idea. Well, we're kind of coming to the end here. Allison, I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate you jumping on with us and your perspective. Your team has just done you and your team have done just a fantastic job with the Calix community, and really evolving it dramatically over the last few years. And I think there are so many great takeaways that other companies could leverage, broadband service providers especially could leverage, to try and think about, how do I create this type of engagement with my customers. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was awesome. This was so fun. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks again, Allison, for joining us. And we hope everyone enjoyed our discussion today about community and gained some insights from Allison. But as always, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app. And if you'd like, you can subscribe to us on YouTube and catch the latest video podcast. Otherwise, feel free to connect with both Gabe and myself on LinkedIn. And Allison, you can connect with Allison on LinkedIn too, or you can visit our website to send us a message. That's all for this week, but we'll talk soon.